You know, man, as excited as I am to have gotten this Dead Air suppressor in finally, or my Form 4 that is, I think I'm more excited by the cockstock that it came with.
Why are you excited for that?
Well, because now I can recreate the Red Hot Chili Peppers album cover. Hey guys, welcome to Gear Tasting. Today I'm pretty excited. I just recently, as in like the last day or two, picked up my Dead Air Armament Sandman-S suppressor that I've been waiting on for 9 months. So, you know, I decided I could either have a baby or order a suppressor. So I ordered a suppressor, and that's how long the ATF took to get my Form 4 back, finally. So this is the Sandman-S, and now I can index this. Feels so good. Now, I can shoot suppressed out of the 6.5 Creedmoor that I built. And what's nice is I can now take this off of here and put it onto the 300 black that I built thanks to a key mount muzzle brake from Dead Air that I mounted in there. Let me make sure this is indexed right. So this was my original idea with the 300, was to get a 30 cal can that could shoot through 300 black and also through the 6.5 Creedmoor. So I'm pretty excited about the modularity of the Sandman-S on what I can use it for. So if you're not familiar with this build, I've talked about it a few times. This is the 300 that I built. It's based on a Daniel Defense modular rail. I think it's a 12-inch modular rail. And then the barrel inside is a Daniel Defense 10.3-inch 300 black barrel. So that, coupled with that key mount muzzle brake, which is just the same muzzle brake you see there at the end of the 6.5, I can now change out the suppressor between these two guns and be able to shoot like that. And you know what's nice is I haven't fired this without the suppressor on this. I used to have a Noveske Pig on here that I was running for a while that still kind of gave that same look and feel. But this key mount muzzle brake does go pretty far into the actual float rail itself. So I probably wouldn't fire this without the suppressor now, just because, you know, plus the ammo that I got from Silencer Co. probably at least a year, if not more ago, is the subsonic stuff that they made that was 300 black. So I designed this to be a suppressed gun to begin with, and that's probably how I'll just keep shooting it. But I wanted to show you guys that and also talk about the Sandman-S. I haven't even got a chance yet to go out and shoot this thing. I'm pretty excited about doing that, and I will definitely report back when I come back with some news on that. But that's kind of the gist of it. You know, it comes with this nice junk sock too that you can store it in. Thought I'd harass them a little bit about that. All right, guys, the next thing I want to do is really kind of talk through cleaning my 6.5 Creedmoor. So I came back from Mammoth. I've yet to clean it. I've now got about 180 rounds through the gun, and I want to actually clean it now. And what I decided to do was follow the instructions that actually came with my rifle. So this came from Accurate Ordnance. This is the owner's manual, and in here he talks about, or I assume Mark wrote it, I'm sure it was a team effort, so Accurate Ordnance put this together, and it has a pretty detailed section on cleaning your rifle barrel. And you know, I talked to Accurate too about barrel life expectancy, because something I'm really being diligent about with this build that I've never had to do with a gun before, nor really cared about, is I'm really being a stickler about the round count. So that's why I know I have 180 rounds through this, because I actually do. I've literally notated each time I go shoot. I come back, I notate the dope and things like that I got from shooting, and then I also catalog how many rounds I shot, what I was doing. Was it a zero? Was it checking? Was it chrono? Anything like that. I've been noting those things, so I've really done a good job keeping track of that. And you know, at Mammoth, I counted the rounds that I came back from or with, you know, so anyway, keeping track of your round count is pretty good on especially a precision rifle, because there is a barrel life expectancy, which Accurate said on the Rock Creek barrel that this is made with. This is a 24-inch Rock Creek barrel. I should get about 3,000 to 3,600 rounds through it before I do need to rebarrel it. So that's really not a lot when you think about it, you know, compared to an AR that might have, 10 to 20,000 rounds that you could put through it before you need to replace a barrel. So, it is important, especially with precision rifle and that lower round count, to really kind of get an accurate tally of how many rounds you got through it. So what I wanted to do is just kind of walk through the steps, and I've already cleaned this, but we'll be kind of showing that process of me cleaning it throughout me talking through the steps. So what I wanted to do is just kind of walk through the way that they describe it in the owner's manual, and I did follow that just to kind of give it a shot and see what that was like, because there is no wrong way to clean a rifle. Everybody will tell you, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way, but really what it comes down to is how do you want to clean it? What's your personal preference? Are you removing copper? Are you not removing copper? What kind of solvent are you using? There's literally lots of information out there, especially on the internet, on how to clean a rifle. You can type that into Google, and I swear to God, you'll probably get half a million pages that come back on different ways to clean it. So that being said, my chosen method before I tried the way that Accurate Ordnance said is, I've always been a fan of Hops number 9, and I use Slip 2000 for my lube. But what Accurate recommends is some products from KG. So I picked these up just as a testing ground to see how I like these products, because I've never used these products. So this is the KG1 carbon remover. This is the KG12 copper solvent, and this is the KG4 gun oil. And while this is pretty new, something leaked in my range box, so that's why it looks all crappy. Also, the patches that I'm using are about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and then I've got a jag, which I'm pushing the patches through with, and I've also got a brush that I'm using. And I will kind of put these specific things in the description of the YouTube video, because it took me a long time to track down the right stuff. So if you're shooting 6.5 Creedmoor, it might be cool to kind of check the different things that I use, because like I said, it took me a little bit to find the right pieces to kind of put this thing together. And I'm also using a coated cleaning rod from Dewey. This has a rotating handle in the back, so that as you're pushing it through, it rotates with the rifling that's in the gun. And the thing that you'll see in the cleaning manual too is that Accurate even gets into how to wrap a patch around the jag too, which you'll see. And then I've also got a bore guide. This is a Tipton bore guide, and it fits in here. And what this is really preventing is it kind of keeps solvent from leaking into the action. It keeps the rod aligned as you're pushing it through, and then it also just really helps in general to really make sure that the gun stays cleaner. So that's kind of why I use one of these things too. And it's also protectant too. So you're kind of protecting the action in the bore from something being on the end, like a jag jamming through and things like that. So the first step is really to remove the bolt. So I'll kind of walk through this a little bit with you guys too. And of course this was already cleaned, and I put some lube on it as well. But really the first step is to check the chamber. So you want to have a flashlight. You want to really get in here and make sure you're checking to make sure there's no obstructions before you start jamming a rod down there. That's just always a good thing to check for to begin with. Was that funny? All right, so reading through the instructions here, which I wanted to do. So ensure the firearms are loaded, remove the bolt, set it aside, make sure the chamber and bore are unobstructed, insert the bore guide into the action. So I actually modified this Tipton bore guide because of the fact that I have this duct tape foam cheek riser that I made. When this goes in the correct way, it was actually almost out here. So I actually trimmed down a piece of the metal and put this little insert back on, so you can pull this off. I trimmed that down and then I put this back on. So just to kind of give you an idea why it might look smaller than usual. The rod, not, yeah. All right, so soak a patch in KG1, wrap it around the jag. So this is kind of the thing I wanted to show you. So when you put the rod, or put the jag on here, so the description states that when you're wrapping the patch should kind of go on in the direction of the rifling. So meaning that you're putting the patch across the top of it right here, and then you're twisting clockwise, which is the direction of the right hand twist in the rifling, and then that's the way you're inserting it. So as you're inserting it, you're it's rolling clockwise in the direction of the rifling, and it's not rolling counter to that, and it could get hung up and actually untwist in the barrel. So that's kind of the purpose of that. So you're using KG1, and again, the KG1 is the carbon remover. So that's kind of where we're starting with this. We're taking the carbon out of the gun. So you're soaking a patch in KG1, pushing that all the way through the barrel and removing the patch. So it comes out the end, you remove the patch, and you're kind of looking at kind of that first round hit to see what's going on in the barrel. And then you're going to soak another patch, and then you're basically going to push that back and forth about 4 or 5 times, and then remove it out the front. And then you're going to install the bronze brush, which is here. And just a little tip, and I'll put this in the show notes as well in the description, but basically there's an adapter piece. And that adapter piece came with this specific Dewey, this model of Dewey rod. So you put the adapter piece on first, and it's basically taking it from a male to a female, and then you can put on the male brush, basically, is what it's allowing you to do. So, and then you're going to take that brush and basically work that back and forth a few times. Bronze brush. So what they say is, and this is a good tip too, when you're pushing the bronze brush through the bore, you always want to make sure it exits the bore or the muzzle device before you pull it back through. So even though this has a rotation that it's going to rotate with the rifling as it gets pulled back through, you never want to stop halfway through and then pull it back out. You always want to make sure it comes out the other end first before you pull it back through. So there's nothing wrong with taking it back through the other direction as long as it comes out of the end of the barrel first. So something that I really was curious about with this too, because I have this built-up cheek riser, and I'll show you. So what happens is that this gets inserted and that rod rests right on my cheek riser. So it's actually pushing up on the rod as I'm pulling that through. So I was concerned that what was going on is that this, I guess that pressure was preventing the rod from actually turning with the rifling as I put it through. So I actually drew a line on this thing on the cleaning rod and watched it. So I made sure that it was actually rotating through. So that's something you might want to make sure that you're concerned about too. Even though I can feel it rotating in my hand, I still wanted that visual indicator. So that's what I was able to do with that. I'm just going to pull this off just because. So once you move that brush back and forth through, you're doing that to remove the stubborn carbon that's in the barrel. And then you run another KG1 soak patch completely through. And then you work another second patch with the KG1 again, back and forth to continue removing that. And at this point, with that second KG1 soak patch, you're looking for a bluish green tint because you're looking for any indication of copper inside the barrel. Because if there is copper, then you need to use something like the KG12 copper solvent to get that out of there. So if you do detect copper, you see that blue-greenish hue, now you start in with the KG12. So if copper is present, you're wrapping a dry patch around first to clean out the KG1 in there to make sure there's none of that left before you push the KG12 through. So once that's done, you soak a patch with KG12 and then wrap it around the jag and press it back and forth a few times, 4 to 5. And then you let that KG12 sit in the barrel. So you want that copper solvent to start, really dissolving the copper that's in there. So it's about a 2 to 3 minute wait while you make sure that it's working correctly and that it's really soaking in. And then you're going to push a dry patch through to get out that KG12. It might take you 2 patches. It depends how much KG12 still comes out at the end of that. And then you push a KG1 soak patch through to remove the rest of the KG12 in there. And then, well, that's not really to remove it. You're really checking at that point to see if it's still got copper in it. So if you see blue-green again, you're going to repeat that whole process with the KG12 again. So then after the copper's cleaned out of the barrel and you're not seeing that anymore, then you push another KG1 patch completely through and then a dry patch to remove the KG1. So then you remove the bore guide, you wipe out the chamber with a dry cloth. So if you've got any kind of leaking going on in the action, you want to make sure you get that out of there. And then also the muzzle end too, where your muzzle device or brake is, you want to make sure there's no, leftover junk going on there either. So, and then you're going to wipe the fouling off the bolt. So you grab the bolt, grab some KG1 on a rag, and just basically wipe down the bolt itself to make sure it's clean. And then you're going to basically put some lube on it. And the way that I've always been taught with lubricant is that any kind of wear area you see, like it's kind of probably going to be really hard to tell with the lube that's on here, but anytime you get a wear area or a lighter area that looks like it's, you know, metal scraped by it, that's where you want to put the lube on, because that's where it's actually interacting with the action. So that's where you want to put that. So Accurate Ordnance recommends, let's see, put a small line of lube behind the bolt's lug. So make sure you're hitting those areas too. And then they also have a tip here that says, keep in mind lubricants can attract and hold debris, so use it sparingly. Also in colder weather, thicker lubes and greases can adversely affect normal operation. So that is true. I've never had experience with KG1 really before. Hold on, KG4, which is the oil that they make. I've always, again, used Slip 2000, but I am gonna give this a shot this time to see how it goes. When I was at Mammoth, I basically put a little bit of Slip 2000 EWL on it before I started the match, and I didn't touch it the whole time. So I never relubed the gun at all, and you know, it got down to -2, and it really wasn't a problem. So I like Slip because of that. I know that it is good down to -2 at least, because I've used it down to that, and it's never gummed up or messed up. So that's kind of the gist of going through the cleaning process. I know that was a little long, but hopefully I condensed it a little bit. Cleaning's important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Many people I know never clean a gun whatsoever. I know on my ARs, I'm definitely not religious on my cleaning cycle when it comes to ARs. And then the other little tip I wanted to say too is that I got these nifty little bottles these are made by Nalgene, and these can store basically the KG1 and 12 if you want to take these kind of to go in a range box. Just a tip, these are larger bottles, and they don't make smaller bottles like Slip 2000 does with their lubricant, which I have one of these in my kit all the time. It's just a smaller bottle of EWL, and that's what I carry around with me, so I always have some. So that is the cleaning process. All right, welcome to Questions Over Coffee. The first one today comes from Dave on Twitter, who asks, can you explain a bit more about the second weapon selection for Mammoth, 5.56 versus 308, AR platform or not? Thanks. Yeah, so I think what you're asking, Dave, is you're wondering why we went with 5.56 versus 308 on the secondary shooter's weapon selection. And I can kind of answer that. The first year we did Mammoth, I've been shooting with the same guy now for 2 years straight. And the first year, he ran a OBR in 308. It was heavy. He had some issues because of the cold. It might have had to do with lube, something like that. Please don't quote me on that. That was, I'd have to ask him for specifics on exactly what happened. But he did have some failures on that OBR that might not have been attributed to the actual gun itself. So, please don't think, oh, OBRs are crap because Bryan said they were on Gear Taste, and that's not what I'm saying. So I will ask for clarification from him because I'm kind of interested to know exactly what it was again that happened the year before. But this year at Mammoth, he ran an SR-15 from Knights in 5.56 because one, it's a lighter caliber. The targets for secondary shooter were no further than, don't quote me on this either, 500 or 300 to 400 yards maybe. I don't know. I'd have to find out too. I know that primary shooter, my targets were out to 1,100 yards, so there was quite a big difference in terms of yardage between primary and secondary targets. So one of those reasons, because of the fact from the first year that we didn't really shoot very far distances, my shooting partner opted not to go with the 308 but off 5.56. He was using really good ammo. I think it was like Black Hills 262 grain or something like that. I've got it in the article. And and I'll link to the article if you're interested in kind of what he was running specifically for a weapon. But that was really the big deal. One, we didn't need the power of the 308 for the targets he was shooting. Two, running 5.56 and that SR-15 allowed him to run a lighter gun, therefore have more weight, room for more weight and other things rather than the gun. So I think his total gun weight was either 9.5 or sub 9 pounds with just the SR-15. So that's kind of the reason we ran that this year. All right, next question comes from Daniel on Twitter, who asks, think you can use the Arc'teryx Leaf combat pants as a ski pant? How moisture wicking are they? Good question. I have some combat pants here. Now, the Arc'teryx combat pants are made out of tweed material, which is the same thing those Sphinx pants that I've worn forever are made out of. These combat pants that I have from Arc'teryx are a little bit newer. I've only had these for about 3 years or so now. But the tweed material has a natural stretch to it. It is going to dry quickly. Now, I don't know if it would really be used as a ski pant, though. I feel like I would wear them, but I think prolonged moisture in them it's just a matter of is it going to dry or not. And I think if you're using it for a snow pant, really depending on the environment you're in and how much water you're getting into as well would kind of dictate that too. It does have a drawstring on the bottom of the combat pant though too, so you could kind of draw that closed a little bit. It does not have the same type of feature that, bear with me a minute, sorry. Just kind of comparing and contrasting the Sphinx pants that I've had, and these aren't made anymore. They are about 5 years old. But so the Sphinx pants actually had a kind of a natural gaiter built into them, and then you could take the grommet on each of the sides of the cuff here and actually put more shock cord on and actually create your own gaiter out of those too. So just a consideration on the combat pant. That might be a desirable feature to look for in a new pair of Arc'teryx pants if you're looking for something that you could ski in. So hopefully that answers your question on that one. Okay, last question comes from Big Tones from YouTube. Big Toenz. I don't know. About the pack Kelly was wearing for shot. What kind of backpack was the wife wearing? Sorry, I forgot her name. You said her name. It's Kelly. Oh, that was your paraphrase. Okay. Hey, my wife's name is Kelly. Thanks. Anyway, this is the pack she was wearing at shot this year. Rob has carried a Blade 20 from Arc'teryx for, I don't know, what would you say, 2 years now? Yeah. Something like that. And Kelly wanted to try one of these out at SHOT this year, so she bought one to wear at SHOT. I have not had any experience with this yet, but I am going to talk through the features. Rob kind of walked me through some of the things on this pack, and honestly, it's pretty appealing to me too. I might see if I can snag Kelly's pack to try it out a little bit too. So first off on the pack, what Rob said he liked about it is that you can tuck the shoulder straps into this piece of elastic like this here and then carry it like a briefcase. So it's kind of built in a briefcase type fashion, meaning that you can open this main zipper, which does come all the way down to here and all the way open to here, and pop open the front lid. But you don't have to open that fully. You can kind of open it just to here. And if this is on your back, you can kind of pull it around to the front, and now you can access things like file folders and what have you in your laptop or something like that from this type of configuration. And again, you can open it all the way up, and now it is kind of the regular filleted open backpack style, which I think is pretty cool. And this is kind of a larger pocket on the inside here. You've got, again, like the larger laptop pocket there. And then this section, which is kind of interesting, you can open this up here and kind of use that to store clothes or something like that, kind of goods that way. And then as you're kind of coming around to the front again, closing this, there's a small pocket here that Rob keeps a tourniquet in, which is that's not a really good flat fold job, man. You need to work on that. So it's got a tourniquet there, and then as you work your way closed, which I'm going to do real quick, close this back up. Now you've got this front section here, which, you know, kind of makes up this front panel that's on the pack. You've got this front section that has kind of some more storage in it. You've got a pocket here, just some internal organization like so, and that can zip shut just like that. And then, let me think. I think that was it. Yeah. So again, that is the Arc'teryx Blade 20, which you can kind of carry as a briefcase or a backpack. All right, guys, thanks for watching Gear Tasting. As a reminder, all the stuff that we talked about on the show, we'll put in the description with links on where you can pick stuff up at. And, you know, like I talked about with the cleaning equipment, you can make sure that you're getting the right stuff if you also have a 6.5 Creedmoor. And then with Gear Tasting, always remember, use the pound tag Gear Tasting on any social media network, and we will find your questions and get them answered just like this on Gear Tasting. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here on Gear Tasting, apparently last video I said, what was it I said a lot? Kit bag. Yeah, so kit bag. If you like Gear Tasting, please consider joining our crew leader membership, linked below in the description, and help us support what we're doing here on the show and allow us to give you back something in return. Thanks for watching.